Yeah,
you can
we could do that in a little bit. I'm just going to go through introductions, but yeah, whoever drive.
No, you drive. No, not me, please.
Not me. Okay, I'll do it then.
Please.
I was going to say the hesitation, like no.
Yeah. We all jumped at once on that one for sure.
Yeah, everyone wants to drive a mural. Yeah. Well, hello everyone. This is GVDS Showcase, or the Global Virtual Design Sprint Showcase number 5 that we've done. This one, if you're not familiar with Global Virtual Design Sprint Showcase, what this is an opportunity for all of us that have taken part in the GVDS to essentially showcase what we've done in the past month. We'll do some introductions of the team so you get to know them fairly well. And then we'll go into a mural that they've created that will take you on the journey from where they started in terms of the idea, the challenge, or the concept, all the way into their results at the end and what they learned, what their impressions were, and other things that they'd like to kind of say about their experience. I'm basically acting as a launch host, so I will be kind of working in the background and making sure that everything's working smoothly on YouTube and in Zoom. If anyone has any questions for the team on what they're doing, please post that up in either YouTube or Zoom, and I'll field those questions and ask the team towards the end of their presentation. If there are no questions, I already have a subset list that I'm ready to ask everyone here, so fear not, there will be plenty of inquiry into what the team has done and where they've gone. So I think I'm going to start things off with introductions, and I'm going to always start on in this case, it's going to be left for some people to the right. I'm going to call on Graham to give an introduction about who he is, where he's located, and what he has plans to do for the weekend. Kind of like a third question that's kind of more variable. So again, who you are, what you're all about, where you're located, and what are your plans for the weekend, Graham?
My name's Graham Smale. I'm a retired stock exchange executive. I sort of took an exit from the financial markets and trying to build a new career in coaching and facilitation, and sort of going online with this kind of work is fascinating me. So that's why I'm here. And for the weekend, I think I've got a number of coaching sessions that I've got planned with people, and recovering from my daughter being here for a week. So she's a bit of a whirlwind when she comes through the house. So my wife's a bit upset, but she kind of arrives and disappears like a whirlwind. So that's what's up for the weekend. Recover.
How old's your daughter?
She's 23.
Oh, okay. That is a whirlwind year. So yeah, I can see that. Cool. So Graham, who should we go to next?
I'll pick on Jana.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Jana Stone. I'm based out of Portland, Oregon in the US, where it has been raining all day and night. So it's officially rainy season here, which lasts forever. I work at HP Inc. and I'm an innovation learning manager there for our global HR team. And this weekend, probably do a lot of movies, play inside. I don't know. I always have a hard time with the rainy transitions. It's like, oh, we can't go outside, and it's COVID and pandemic, so it makes it hard. But I think just find some fun, crafty stuff for our family to do inside for the weekend and cook a bit.
Sounds
That's
good.
it. Yeah. Americo, Jana, Alves.
Thank you, Jana. So my name is Americo. I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal. I work as an independent consultant providing service in the intersection of research, marketing, and innovation. I work with companies, business, and also consulting or research agencies that need assistance to implement their projects. And so that's it. It's me. I'm passing to Malaika.
You're not going to tell us what you're going to do this weekend?
Oh, this weekend. These 2 last weeks have been very complex with GVDS and work and the end of a home lockdown because my daughter was part of a route of infection of COVID. She's not infected, but one of her colleagues was found infected, and we had to stay at home, and it ended last weekend. And so I will maybe sleep watch some Netflix and have fun with my daughters. And that's it.
Totally fine. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Malaika, we're waiting in anticipation of what fascinating things you're going to be doing this weekend, but please let us know who you're all about first.
No pressure. I am Malaika Paquiot. I'm VP of Product at K4 Connect, which is a mission-driven technology company that focuses on older adults here in Raleigh, North Carolina. This weekend, there is a film festival going on that's based in Wilmington, but it's all virtual, based in Wilmington, North Carolina, but it's mostly virtual. And I'll be participating in that, checking out films. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. That's probably my weekend.
Sounds like a better weekend than mine, that's for sure. So hopefully it's very enjoyable. Okay, so thanks for everyone for that. Let's get into the mural and the journey that you guys have been on. Who is going to drive? Oh yes, Americo, you said you wanted to do that, right? I'm kidding with you. And that's going to be Mr. Stone, who's going to be doing the presentations this time around.
Okay, let me just iconize that. Right, can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's the big backdrop. So what we're going to do is start off with, how did we end up with a team name, guys? Can anybody remember? We're Team Galaxy Unicorn, number 10.
I don't know.
So it was,
I think if I recall, we had Space Unicorn, but I think we changed it to Galaxy so we wouldn't get any kind of conflicts between two different teams. That was it.
Well, and we still had confusion throughout the process too, right, Malaika?
Yeah.
I love it.
There may or may not be another team with the same name.
Yes.
Yeah. And if their product is better, we'll just inherit their their process too.
Impossible.
So I'm just going to zoom into, so we've met most of the team. There are a couple of members who couldn't make it tonight. Mehmet Karakus, he was an advisor on our team and very, very helpful at times when we got stuck. You want to say anything more about Mehmet?
Mehmet is the guy.
Go ahead.
Always advising, great tips, great leading people and giving example. Awesome.
Yeah, he was the top awarded in GVDS 4, so it was great to have him on the team. And Lisa Doyle also couldn't make it tonight, so we're missing her, and she was also an important member of the team. Now let's start off with where we started, sort of the big idea that we started to work with. So we've honed in on looking at the virtual experience for what were previously physical events. And we zoned in on a couple of challenges around that. And one of the things we had quite long discussions about at times was the issue of networking on face-to-face events and the sort of tech glitchy experience that we experience inside these new Zoom-based events or other platforms. And so we ended up with the problem statement around face-to-face events have moved online, and the experience is somewhat different. We are faces in little boxes, and the tech is glitchy, and we've lost the human context. So that was the backdrop to where we started. Anybody in the team want to chip in on our topic?
I mean, I just added, it was sort of top of mind for everyone because we're all having this experience of, being in quarantine or being under lockdown. So even though I think a lot of us have had experience with virtual events, it's just heightened now that we're in a pandemic. So it was just sort of, it seemed timely.
Americo, you had some points around networking that you were particularly passionate about.
Yeah, well, during lockdown in last March, the situation was really terrible because it was really complex to keep up with meetings like in GVDS and other more formal occasions, and that brings a lot of frustration for those who goes with these kind of situations. And if we could find something that could help to reduce that pain, let's say, that will be fantastic in my perspective. Yeah.
Jenny, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we had almost 2 How Might We tracks going forward, and one was about kind of data and social media that we dug into a little bit, and then this one, and then landed on this one, just given, I think, what Malaika mentioned of how present it is for everyone right now and relevant. So we were exploring 2 different spaces and kind of landed on this in the end.
Yeah, and I think the GVDS 5, which we're in now, was run slightly differently from sort of the problem-forming stage. Robert, do you have any sort of comments on the shifts between GVDS 4 and 5?
For the most part, we didn't go through the normal process of having people submit their challenges and ideas up front. But this time around, we gave more time to discovery and exploration of the topic by the teams themselves, so that there wasn't this adoption of someone else's idea and trying to interpret that and then re-engineering it for the sprint. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, and I think with the last time around, you almost had a sponsor in the team who was deeply attached to the topic, which has advantages and disadvantages. So I was just noticing on your thinking behind the difference.
But we are bringing it back for 6, for reference. So that's coming back.
Okay.
We had enough people actually comment on that. So keep going.
No, cool. So then with the sprint, what you do is you zone in on the how might we's. Now, typically, you end up with 3 how might we's in a sprint. So in this one, we ended up only with 1 how might we, which is to create a human-centric experience for virtual networking opportunities. So fairly open-ended. I think one of the challenges is how do you make it open-ended enough without solutions in the how might we, and not too closed-ended where it sort of precludes solutions. Anybody in the team like to add a comment on this one?
Yeah, so our purpose was 2 sides. One side was to make the experience more human, and the other side was improving or having sponsoring a networking effect to bring people together, based on exploring those glitches that happens during conference calls. And we concluded in this how might we more generic about creating the human-centric experience for virtual networking opportunities.
Yeah. Anybody else in the team sort of how they thought we went through the process? How might we? Was it easy, difficult?
I think, just reinforcing what Americo said is that we wound up kind of folding 2 together a little bit because we thought both pieces around that human-centered experience and the networking were important, which came out a little bit in our user interviews, which I know we'll get to, but how untangling those kind of within the how might we was a little hard for us to do, and so we thought they were both important to create into one how might we.
Malaika, do you have any observations on the how might we process?
Well, it was my first time doing GVDS, and sorry about that, I will disable Slack. And actually going through the process of the how might we, I thought it was an interesting approach. I think I struggled a little bit at the beginning, but again, having folks like you and Americo and Mehmet who have gone through this before was super helpful to help me sort of wrap my mind around what that should look like. I think a lot of my struggle though was just being new to the whole thing.
Yeah. I think one of the big differences between GVDS 5 and 4 was the dropping of an exercise called mapping, which is in the standard Google design sprint process. Robert, do you have any sort of observations on why that we dropped that from the templates, just for the newbies who are listening, and for Malaika?
It caused some major headwinds. In fact, it was a showstopper for several teams around squaring what they had done with the long-term goal in the sprint questions and being able to take the interviews and the how my weaves from the interviews and the articles and kind of blending them into one space. There were some teams that took a full day to get through the map to get a better understanding from each other's perspective on which direction to turn. So I eliminated it as kind of a grand experiment around, can a team take what's currently in the sprint without the map and be able to still center on some idea that they find compelling? Because I found that the map had a better application in the enterprise environment to an actual work environment, but in the GVDS, in a simulated one, it was hard because there wasn't really anything you could put a foundation against beyond what you had kind of done. And it reinforced the notion that you really had to understand your audience and your research really well.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those controversial, even in the face-to-face environment, it's a tough one. But yeah, it's just interesting, your thinking. Then in the sprint process, what we do is we focus on kind of the long-term goal. There is a short-term goal specifically around what we wanted to do from a prototype perspective, but the crazy end game was to create a product that makes reality obsolete and create the next-gen unicorn. It was just the creative thinking of the team. Not sure we're going to get there, but it was a wonderful, energetic pull. So the sprint process now has what are called the sprint questions, or the can we, so the risk management questions. And one of the first ones that we came up with is, did we choose the right subject matter experts? And we can have a bit of a chat around that. The second one was, do we have a solution that is actually needed, which is sort of a ripple effect from, did we interview the right SMEs? And the third question was around, do we actually know what problem we're solving for? So there were some deeper concerns around the team on whether we were heading in the right direction. Anybody in the team, Americo, as a researcher and being sort of working with SMEs and those kind of things, what did we do there or what didn't we do that we should have done?
In my perspective, we should interview people. But I'm a researcher, so I always defend my own crown. So I think that research is important to bring new perspectives and get the language, get the feeling of the people who has pains around the problem. So I think we should have done it. But okay, no problem. So in terms of the solution could be applied to an attendee or to an organizer of these networking events, and that was something that was not clear until Malaika decided that, okay, we have a good solution that is an extension, and maybe it's better for organizers, and later we move it to consider both sides of the equation. And I think at the end of the day, I think we did a good job. We just tested more our solution, but I think we chose it the right way. Do we actually know the problem we are solving for? Well, the problem of glitches and bringing a more human-centered experience around those glitches and those problems, that is very personal, and that requires a bit of better understanding of our subject matter experts. And I think we should have done more. Should have done some interviews to really understand their problems in the context, when things happen, how that relates with their presence in a conference, and to understand better the problem.
Yeah, Jana, Malaika, what can you remember? What got in the way of us doing SMEs? I mean, it was sort of on the broad plan coming into the process. What got in the way of us doing that? Who can remember that?
I think from my perspective, and similar to Malaika, this was a new system for me. So doing a virtual sprint, and so not really knowing when we were doing SMEs or just being new and not understanding the process so well. So we were past the point of doing SME interviews, and they were like, oh, we were supposed to do that, but we still had to move forward. So it felt like we kind of ran around one of those hurdles, crammed back to the visual, without realizing we were supposed to do that. So
yeah, I think the original, or maybe the way it typically goes, is that there's a set of SME interviews, and then you go into sort of more brainstorming of how to solve the problem. And we skipped over that SME interview, and it wasn't clear to me if that was a byproduct of just this version of GVDS, or if it was we just ran out of time and figured we would just interview people afterward. That said, I think we felt okay just because of this, with this particular problem, we had all been on the receiving end of it, if not the organizing end, right? So you think about the two personas. They're the people who attend virtual conferences or virtual meetings, and there are people who are organizing them. And I think among us as a team, we had enough experience to be able to draw on that. And then after coming up with the solution, reaching out to people to validate with.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair reflection. And I think part of it is a reflection of not coming into the GVDS with a sort of preformed, overarching conceptual challenge like in GVDS 4, because then what you can do is then drop straight into doing the SME interviews. So I think it is partly, we had a bit of a messy process in the beginning, sort of focusing in on the solutions and areas. So that ate up time, if I remember, and then that ate into time to do the SME. So, but I think Malaika's point on that we're all organizers and users was enough to be able to carry what we did. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Then what one goes into is the brainstorming and sketching the final solution. So what we have on the left is Malaika was the winner with her sketch, and so I'll ask Malaika to sort of talk how she came up with ideas, how it worked for her, and then each of us can talk about our way of working with that sketching process, which is also for some people quite difficult and in virtual environment a bit harder than face-to-face. Malaika.
Yeah, I would say, so even coming to the idea, it was a combination of, I think it was actually inspired by Mehmet, who had this idea of really, instead of trying to think about how to get rid of all of the glitches, for instance, how do we frame it differently? How do we make it so that an experience that is typically annoying or that causes friction, how do we reframe that so that it doesn't feel that way to the people experiencing it? And so I kind of, took that and thought about a number of the glitches, if you will, that we find ourselves experiencing, and how might those be, how might we turn that into something fun? And so I drew on the experiences that were already happening. So for example, I know I've done it, other people that I've been in meetings with, depending on your level of comfort with the team, if someone is frozen, or it might be on your side, everyone else is frozen. And if there's someone that's frozen with a funny face, taking a screenshot of that and like sending it to people so that they kind of see, what that looks like. So the idea was to play off some of the things that were already happening as we navigate this new place that we find ourselves in, being in virtual meetings. So yeah, the idea was, okay, let's think about the glitches that people find themselves in, the audio glitches, the visual glitches, the out of sync with your slides, and what can you do to make those fun? And so drawing on, social media, the fact that there are filters, polling, just using that for fun. And that's kind of what I came up with, or that's what the sketches reflect.
And as a first-time participant sort of doing this virtually, how was the sketching experience for you, Malaika?
I'm not particularly like confident in my sketching skills. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was fine. I think, I think everyone was like super gracious, and especially, again, it was really helpful to have people on the team who have been through it before. I know the thing that slowed me down, and I don't know if we'll get into this to the actual like mock-ups or whatever. I had a tendency to think through like the technical feasibility, and being relieved of that was very helpful. So I would say just, having people who have been through it before to kind of guide was super helpful. The sketching itself, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was under a lot of pressure to make something beautiful. So that was good. And just kind of did some things.
Great. Jana, also as a newbie to the online experience, how did you find the sketching process?
I loved it. I've done sketching in more kind of prototyping in 3D format with teams live. So I thought it was just a really seamless, within the constraints we know, to get something on paper and share it on mural. I thought worked as well as it can given the constraints of virtual, and just thought it was great for each of us to have our own ideas pop up, and then how do those get mashed up in different ways as well. So I actually really enjoyed that process. Great.
America, how's sketching for you?
Oh, I think I never like a sketch. This part of the process is something that it's complex for me. It's to bring something that can be reasonably tangible or explainable of my idea. It's something a bit difficult, I must confess. But well, this works as a team, and if I can bring a beautiful solution, I may come with a feature, and that is rewarding. And I think we did it. I think I was a bit surprised when we realized that this was an extension, not an application or something other tangible format, because I never imagined myself to bring an extension from a design sprint. But okay, it was very okay for me.
Right. I also struggle, and it's this sort of fear factor that it's got to look beautiful. Ultimately, it should be readable. That's a good start.
Yeah.
And I also have some, question noticings over some that I've been involved with, where the people who are more designerly, who are able to draw stuff well and beautifully, I just have an open-ended question whether there's a natural bias to want to choose those. Robert, do you have any observations about sort of the quality of sketches and how it gets interpreted by the team participants and the bias that may or may not come with that?
So it's going to depend a lot on the team and a lot on the designer. I've been on teams where the designer wants to win, so he or she makes the best possible sketch and that they can, and their body language all but signals the black hole of intent that they have with getting everyone to fixate on what they've done. Sometimes the team picks the one that isn't a sketch, but is a bunch of stick figures and lots of words, because it somehow communicates the essence of what they're after more so than any visual does. So there's really no rhyme or reason. There seems to be a bias towards good visuals. So if you do have a good designer, he or she may actually illuminate a really bad idea, but that's something that just goes with the territory sometimes of being able to evaluate things at face value versus understanding how everything maps back to what you originally had tried to do with the long-term goal, the sprint questions, the intent of the project, and so on.
Carry on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I had known that someone else was going to interpret, I wish I had read ahead. if I had known that someone else was going to interpret my sketch, I definitely would have written more legibly. I thought that was sort of interesting, the fact that someone else would have to explain your sketch. I think that's a very good thing. I probably would have written more legibly if I had known that. And also, you know, that balance between, are you storyboarding the experience, like the overall experience that you want someone to have, or are you sketching a solution, which is sort of.
Yeah, so as the designer and the team, you know, and we all come to the sort of project with our biases and where our natural home base is. I'm interested in this area. And how does one? So in the process, we pick the primary solution, but when we do sort of the screen by screen approach, we then look to the other solutions for nuggets that make sense from the heat maps and pull them across. Sometimes I find that process a bit messy, and I almost feel that you could do a second iteration of concept sketching and get, in other words, a bit like what's called a design studio, where you crit and then you do it again. So I'm curious about whether that might be a better, but it does take longer, of course, and that's time to a process. So that was the winning idea. Congratulations, Malaika. As I said, so it proves that the quality of your writing is not everything, but the challenge of reading somebody else's work does apply. Then we ended up with the prototyping process, and what I'm going to do is leave it. Malaika was the actual designer on the project, so I'll call on you last, Malaika. The rest of the team, how, in taking that concept sketch across to what you see now, which Malaika is going to walk us through, what did we do and how was that experience for you? Jana?
I found it really great to get to the next iteration. And so Malaika, I know, spent time on the weekend and evenings mocking this up, and we had a lot of discussion. This might roll into the user testing grant, but of what are we testing here? But for me, it was really great to see the visual and the ideas come to light in a new, more concrete way with the prototype. And we switch this a little bit, and I'm sure Malaika will touch on this, but really, how do we have this be customer focused, and how do we have the prototype really be for the end user as the primary audience rather than kind of a developer side on the tech side? So I'll stop there because I'm sure you guys will go deeper into it.
Americo, your thoughts?
I think the prototype was I think it's great. It's conceptual. It covers the receiving side and the organizing side, in case the user will have that role. But I think it's appropriate for our learning, and I find it great. Just great. Conceptual, not interactive, but yet sufficiently demonstrative of the purpose, and valid to capture feedback and information for improvement on a second interaction.
Yeah, so before calling you on Malaika, I mean, there's a step in between the original concept sketch and then the final sort of screen-based prototype that's in front of you now. And that's sort of a screen-by-screen discussion and pulling pieces from the winning sketch plus others. That was a very short process for us, was Malaika had a very, very clear idea, because it was her original concept, on how to sort of flesh it out between what she'd had on the board and the discussions we had around it and what we ended up with. So Malaika, over to you on the journey of taking your concept and putting it into the concept that we did. Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Jana alluded to this and I had completely forgotten about it. I think originally, so essentially it's a plugin, or as Americo said, an extension to an existing platform. The idea is that we wanted a way to, rather than build a whole new virtual meeting platform, create a plugin to an existing platform. The example here is Zoom, to sort of to improve on the experience. And so I think at one point we were thinking about strictly looking at it from the perspective of organizers. As we got into it, we decided, you know, for learning, we would do a little bit on the organizer side, but focus more so on what it looks like for a user. Because it is an extension or a plugin for Zoom, in some ways, in terms of the experience, you're constrained by what is available. At least I was constraining myself. You know, I shared this with the team, and that's when Mehmet was like, well, actually, you should sort of not be worried too much about what's possible. At this point, just focus on like what a great experience would be. And I did find that very liberating, because I did spend a lot of time just like, and because I am on the more technical side, I did spend time like looking through API documentation to see like what could be done. Looking at how-tos on how to build out plugins for Zoom to determine like whether or not you have access to the things that I was doing it. And so I did spend some time spinning there, and then just again, having people on the team who have gone through this before to like free me of that was very helpful. So, you know, went from that, I had intended to do an interactive mock-up. And I'm not a designer, I'm in product. And so any mock-ups that I have done in the past, like as a more junior product manager, have been very rudimentary. And so that's what I ended up with, something pretty rudimentary. I remember reading the Sprint book and them talking about just like using Keynote. And so that's what I did. Just, you know, spend some time coming up with screens and doing that. And then we had the meeting with the team, and I got a chance to get some really good feedback from the team, and, you know, focus a little more on particular experiences. And, you know, this is where we ended up. But yeah, I mean, it, you know, it was a good experience. I wish I had more time. I was, I think I was maybe a little overzealous and not as realistic in terms of like how long it would take for someone who is not a designer. I think if I were a designer, this could have been banged out very quickly. But, you know, not being one and then being in my head about the technical side of it made things go more slowly. So, you know, it is what it is. I feel like we had enough to like get people's reactions, but I also think if we had a designer doing this, they would have come up with far more interesting things. But it was really good to, you know, get the feedback from the team and get their ideas about, you know, how to make it better and what to focus on so that it was testable.
Yeah. Malaika, I think you're massively underselling yourself. I think it was a wonderful example of sort of high fidelity but minimum investment type prototyping. I think we get married to, we got to develop something that looks and feels exactly like an app. And the other thing is time pressure is always there. The whole point of this process is to be fast, rapid, so you can iterate and do it again. Now, if you spend a whole lot of time developing something that looked and deeply felt like an app, then yeah, it's important to get the feedback sooner rather than later. So I think that's the most important point. I think you did a great job.
Yeah, I echo that, Graham, that I think to me, it just reinforces the beauty of those fast prototypes and then underscoring the desirability. So if there's no market from a customer, which is what we needed to test first before we go into the tech kind of feasibility, that how do we keep that front and center to make sure there's even a market for something? So.
Yeah, and so, I mean, what's on the screen is just what would happen, for example, from left to right is that somebody freezes. So that's Malaika in the middle of the screen with her beautiful, bright, open eyes. And now then the system would pop up something to do, for example, the fast facts or to meme me. So that was the idea, is that when something glitch like that happens, the the add-in would throw in something that distracted the rest of the group from that glitchy situation. So that was what we were testing. Right, so let's move on to actually what we did with some testers. Americo, can I ask you to take us through this, and which section would you like to look at first?
I like to start with positives and then negatives and then information and insights.
Okay, so we've zoned in the positives. Yep, take us through the story as you read it as a researcher.
Yeah. So we tested the library of delight with three users. They were all users that were close to us. So they were not exactly distant users because they are familiar with us. So that may bring some bias. Nevertheless, I think we found very nice and very interesting ideas and feedback to improve the concept. So there are mostly two ideas in the positive statements. The first one is that they found the library of delight a very creative idea that would allow us to fill in the frozen time that are associated with glitches, and it will avoid the sense of frustration that comes from those situations. So it's positive for that purpose. It's also positive because the memes that are part of the library of delight were understood as an humbling factor that will bring fun and will humanize the experience in virtual events. So they really understand that side of, or how might we, that was humanizing and making the experience more human, but they failed to recognize the networking side that we would like to include in our concept. So those two are the most relevant ideas that come from the positive statements. From the negative side, if you could please move to the negative statements, Graham, please.
Yep, just zoom in a bit. Yep.
Yeah. So in the negative statements, we found like three issues that deserves serious attention. So the first one is the integration with LinkedIn, because this integration was not found compatible with that fun side of our concept. It's somewhat not compatible, and that integration with LinkedIn would also bring some concerns to more senior generations, because they will require some knowledge that could bring frustration for those for that generation. That was something that is important, because networking is also is for all generations, and we will need to have a solution that could attend that pain. There was also another very strong negative statement that is about culture, because for some cultures the library of delight could be really embarrassing, especially societies where concepts like guilt, like shame, for those societies, having a meme of your face in the middle of a meeting, that can be really embarrassing, and we will need to bring some more culture context to our own solution. A third issue was related with the number of times the library of delight will be deployed, because when I'm in a meeting, in a virtual meeting, my connection, if in an hour I may have 3 or 4 situations where I'm not seamless with the rest of the team, and that will bring a meme to to the room, and that will be annoying. If this happens like 5, 6, 7 times, that will be something very negative for the context of a virtual event.
Yeah.
So in the informational statements, what our testers suggested are very related with this unpredictability of glitches, and about the frequency that these memes will be deployed. They are very interesting, but they are very funny, but they can be annoying. And so testers provided several alternatives to our approach. The first one, can you please go scroll down a bit on the...
Yeah. Which one do you want to go to, Americo?
The informational, please.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, thanks.
Right.
So that part of the internet, of the unstable internet message, all that is a strong idea that we collected in terms of information. What they suggested to avoid this potential problem will be having a discrete system message that alerts participants. This is a bit what happens in Zoom now, because if connection is unstable, a message from the system appears naturally, a neutral message. Another option will be having pre-populated message for those glitches, preferentially a sound, like a blimp, something like that, a sound that will alert the attendee for the instability of the internet. And another option could be that these alerts could be sourced by the group itself, and they will like send a message to the person with problems. So this was one of the most relevant statements, informational statements. The other is related with the use of memes. The use of memes was found like really a delight for our testers, and they suggested leveraging on this feature as a way to accelerate team engagement in those meetings. It will be fun. It will make the team more. It will make the context more human, and it will bound the team around those memes. That was interesting. Just control the amount of times those memes appear during a meme. Now, in terms of insights, there are mostly 3. The first one is that they appreciate this switch of focus from technology to people. That will, and so more focus on people, less in technology, and please don't mix with LinkedIn, because that may not be suitable, because it's a professional context with a funny event. Second, we will need to bring cultural considerations to our design process, because this is fun when we laugh at ourselves, but it's different when others laughing. You see others laughing at you. That's a context that needs to be considered in the design process. And the other issues is that we will need to explore some vulnerabilities, especially those related with data privacy, and yet the amount of times those memes will be deployed during a conference. And that's the feedback we collected from our testers.
Thanks, Americo. I think it's a great storyboard behind the interviews. Jana, as the Uber interviewer, how was your experience with the interviews, and any observations you have?
Yeah, thanks, Graham and Americo. I'll just say it was a very internal network, and so for the sake of time, reinforcing what Americo and Graham said, that we did very convenient sample of people I work with who are on Zoom all day, so definitely relevant, but didn't get a bigger cast of a net on that. And people were super excited. What came up, and we work for a global company, was the cultural element was huge. So just reconstruing that, and that's something we had thought of at the forefront. And just how might it look different actually across cultures, and could you almost tailor or use machine learning based on where people are from, and had some fun riffing off that with some of the interviews. But it was a great, overall, I would say it was a really positive experience of like and I froze actually during some of the interviews. So it was a bit relevant during the time that glitches were happening while I was doing it. But people were excited about it and about the opportunity where we hit the mark a little bit on this frame of making it more about the people than just the technology. So is there a way to shift some of that experience to reframe that process? So it was a fun exercise and it was a fun process, but definitely a convenient sample that could have been broader over time.
Yeah, we sort of the standard is to have 5 plus to give you a broader and look for diversification across that. So yeah, that was certainly something we could have done differently. Then, having done all that work, we've got to then figure out, did we, in doing the sprint and hanging it together, did it answer the sprint questions? Will it address a long-term goal? So the goal within the sprint was really to get a prototype out and to have it in front of users. That was the immediate goal. Whether this can address paying cash for Zoom when we build the next unicorn, possibly not. But in terms of the sprint, we got a prototype out, we got it in front of users, we had some interesting and engaging feedback, and so I think, from that perspective so if you remember some of the sprint questions around, did we have the right SMEs? So naturally we didn't, but we Malaika pointed out that as a group of people operating online a lot of our lives, we implicitly were SMEs coming into the process. And there's always the question at the end of it, do we want as a group to move forward with it? And so that was very much a not sure.
Yeah.
And then any other comments from anybody in the team on that lot?
I'm wondering, just knowing, Robert, you have to drop at the top of the hour too. Do we want to open it up?
Yeah.
Or kind of close it out and then open it up to some questions? Just
so we can do that now in the last 5 minutes. I'll just go quickly. There's some stats. We had 10 sessions. We didn't do any SM interviews. We had lots of voting sessions and we only did 3 interviews. And there's some comments on the board from Mehmet is not here tonight, but he's taking a back seat to leave the room and leave the learning to others, but he's still had a big influence on the group. And hand over to you, Robert. Are there any questions from the chat? Or any questions you have you'd like feedback from the team on?
I think the one question I had beyond what was already here is, would it have helped that there was some sort of introductory to the Global Virtual Design Sprint from the very beginning? Like before you would even kind of gotten involved with the GVDS, if I had done some sort of 60-minute engagement sometime before October, that would explain what exactly the event was about, what kind of activities you do, what to expect beyond what was written. For Jana and Malaika, would that have helped the both of you?
It would have helped me. And I know you did a lot of recordings before, so it's to your credit, Robert. One thing that would have helped me understand better is when we did roles. So I facilitate a lot for work, but that's very different than facilitating design sprint that I've never done virtually. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I have this role. And luckily Graham and Americo stepped in a lot. And so even understanding within those roles, what does that mean for this versus like what role I just put what I'm comfortable with in a working day versus not translating it to what this role would actually mean for this sprint. So I was unclear on that, but I think it'd be great to have a little overview beforehand for the newbies of us.
Yeah, I think for me, sort of figuring out like how closely we need to follow the scripts in the murals, and then, getting those ahead of time so we can kind of see, okay, this is what we're going to have to do. That would have been helpful. I felt like there were times when we were like doing a lot of voting or doing a lot of, I guess, consensus building. And I wasn't sure, like, was all of that really necessary, or like how closely did we have to stick to the mural scripts? And then I think it was also different from how it was before. So I don't know, that's all I would say. other than that, I thought it was super helpful and well laid out, and it was just great working with a team from all over.
Well, this particular team was a wildcard team for sure, because you had some really experienced people at the helm, and then you had some people that joining the group that had some experience with design sprints, but not in this virtual environment and in the process. So it was always that tricky balance of how much help do I give to teams to have them understand their environment and what's to be expected versus how much of it is learned through the process. And I don't want to lose people in terms of how far they go with things, but I definitely want to have like areas of the sandbox where they know they can't go, and what exactly is interpretive versus something that's applied. So that's always tricky. But this particular team and getting them together, I thought, okay, this can go either way. This could be where on day 2, they're kind of like going, okay. Or maybe on day 2, we're like, okay, let's go, let's hit it up. So it just depended on how good the templates were in explaining what the process was, or at least for some people like Graham and Mehmet to kind of guide people on where they needed to go.
Yeah, I'll say, Robert, it's super helpful to have folks who've already gone through the process, because I myself lean on that a lot of like, okay, I have faith that folks have done this ahead of us and let's just go with it. And also just the time bound. So recognizing like, hey, maybe we had a week set originally, but it really turned out to be more, and making sure that we were all committed to that as much as we can, knowing not everyone had that carved out. So another thing around expectations that would be helpful.
So Malaika is about to like jet off at the top of the hour, so she has to go right now. So before we do, let's take a quick screen capture of everyone right before we leave. It's like the last space unicorn meeting that we're doing here.
It's
so
Galaxy. This is
Galaxy,
the
sorry.
problem that we have.
I gotta come up with unique names next time around and get that down. So I think
there can only be one unicorn next time.
Yes, that's true. Otherwise, it's not really a unicorn. It's more like
right, exactly.
it's a fabricorn. It's not really doesn't really work. So, in terms of a shot, does anybody have any recommendations in terms of what to do? A gesture, a prop, anything else? What do you think would be appropriate?
I have no idea. Our best glitch face. What is that?
That's
Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill.
Nice.
He's pushing his brain up a hill.
Should we just find something to put on our foreheads? I
have a child drawing. You can't really see.
A packet of soy sauce from HelloFresh.
Yum! Lunch is ready.
Okay, but you can't see it. This is the light. Hold on.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a light. Okay. I'll do this. Hang on.
Okay.
I'll draw a quick smiley face on mine.
Yeah.
I can do.
Okay. Here we go.
Ready? With the life.
Pepper, I love it.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yay.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you all very much for the showcase. Hopefully it was worthwhile use of your time. Again, if you have feedback on how to improve this event, I would love to hear it, because I'm always continuously trying to figure out what's best for people that get involved. Thanks again. Hopefully you had a great time, and appreciate seeing your work on the showcase. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
Well done, Robert. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Have a great evening.
See you later.
Likewise. Bye.
Bye-bye.